A man buys a boat on a bright Saturday in May, and for exactly 3 days it feels like he purchased summer itself. The photos are excellent. The water is blue in the generous way water becomes blue when money is involved. Friends text back faster than usual. His children look thrilled. He stands at the dock with that rare adult feeling that life has not merely improved, but widened. The boat is not just fiberglass and upholstery and a small engine humming under a polished shell. It is freedom. It is status without needing to say the word. It is family memory, weekend escape, a new version of ordinary life. Then the second bill arrives, then the third, then the trailer needs attention. The storage fee goes up. Fuel costs more than he expected because fun is heavy and water resistance is not sentimental. Then insurance enters the conversation with a seriousness the salesman somehow made sound smaller. Safety gear has to be upgraded. A better tow vehicle starts sounding reasonable. The dock needs something. The seats need something. The battery needs charging. The cover tears. The winterization quote lands like a joke told by someone billing by the hour. And before long, the boat is no longer a purchase. It is an ecosystem. That is the lifestyle multiplier effect. It is one of the quietest ways people walk themselves into financial pressure while believing they made only one major decision. In reality, they rarely buy just the boat, or just the pool, or just the home gym, or just the second refrigerator for the garage, or just the backyard upgrade, or just the luxury SUV that suddenly makes the old driveway look too modest. What they actually buy is a new layer of life with its own gravity. New routines, new standards, new supporting purchases, new maintenance, new storage, new expectations, new invisible costs that arrive not as dramatic catastrophe, but as a chain reaction. And that is why one big purchase can be so much more dangerous than 100 small ones. 100 small purchases look messy, impulsive, obvious. You can at least see the pattern. One big purchase can look intentional, adult, even admirable. It can be framed as family-oriented, health-focused, home-improving, memory-building, productivity-enhancing. It often comes dressed in language that makes resistance sound joyless. The pool is for the kids. The home gym is an investment in health. The boat is for quality time. The patio upgrade is for entertaining. The nicer vehicle is for safety and comfort. And the trouble is, none of those statements are necessarily false. That is what makes the multiplier effect so powerful. The original purchase often has a believable purpose, sometimes even a good one. The danger comes from what that purpose quietly recruits afterward, because consumer life does not usually charge you all at once. It charges in layers. The first layer is the visible price. The down payment, the monthly payment, the installation cost, the initial purchase itself. That is the number people stare at, negotiate over, justify, and emotionally prepare for. The second layer is supporting infrastructure. A pool is not only a hole of blue water in your yard. It is fencing, covers, chemicals, pumps, repairs, cleaning equipment, utilities, and furniture that suddenly looks necessary because now there is a pool to sit beside. Better outdoor lighting because you want the area to feel complete, upgraded landscaping because the old yard now looks unfinished next to the new centerpiece. A home gym is not only a treadmill or a rack. It is flooring, mirrors, fans, storage, mats, upgraded speakers, better lighting, more climate control, sometimes a room that can no longer be used for something else. Sometimes a larger home selected partly to make space for the idea of a self that lifts at 6 a.m. with consistency and gratitude. A boat is not only the boat. It is fuel, slip fees, trailers, towing, registration, insurance, jackets, ropes, maintenance, cover replacement, cleaning supplies, weather anxiety, off-season storage, and increasingly specific opinions about things you did not know existed 3 months earlier. That is the first secret of the multiplier effect. The object is rarely alone. It arrives with a convoy. And once you have absorbed that, the next part becomes harder to ignore. Big purchases do not only bring new costs, they often raise the standard of the surrounding life. This is where the multiplication gets psychological. A new pool can make the old patio furniture look tired. A high-end grill can make the rest of the backyard feel underdressed. A premium home gym can make the unfinished basement feel less like a charming work in progress and more like a problem begging for drywall paint and better storage. A nicer car can make every scratch feel more expensive, every parking decision more loaded, every future vehicle feel like it should now live in the same league. This is how one purchase teaches the rest of your life to become more expensive. The mind adjusts quickly to upgraded conditions, then it starts noticing what no longer matches. Once that process begins, the original decision becomes difficult to isolate because now the new object is acting like a higher status guest in a modest room, quietly pressuring the room to improve itself. People assume lifestyle inflation happens only when income rises. Often it happens because one emotionally significant purchase resets the aesthetic, functional, or social expectations around it. The boat creates a boating lifestyle. The pool creates a hosting lifestyle. The home gym creates a performance lifestyle. The mountain bike creates a gear lifestyle. The cabin creates a travel and maintenance lifestyle. The outdoor kitchen creates a perfect weather entertaining lifestyle. The object does not stay an object for very long. It becomes a role, and roles are expensive to maintain. That is why the phrase, "I can afford it," is usually too shallow to be useful around major lifestyle purchases. Afford what, exactly? The item itself, the first year, the monthly payment in isolation, or the full ecosystem of identity, maintenance, time, attention, upgrades, supporting purchases, and opportunity cost that will emerge once the object starts shaping the surrounding life? That last version is the only one that matters, because affordability is not about whether the first invoice clears. It is about whether the purchase quietly teaches your life to become more expensive in 10 different directions at once. Pools are a perfect example because they are sold with emotional imagery and lived with chemical reality. In theory, a pool looks like joy at home. No more crowded public places, more time with the kids, more summer memories. Easy entertaining. A kind of suburban luxury that suggests you made it to a more comfortable chapter. Then real life begins. Maintenance is constant or outsourced, and outsourced maintenance is its own recurring bill. Utilities rise. Repairs arrive at inconvenient times because water systems have a personality disorder around weekends and holidays. There are safety obligations. There are cleaning obligations. There are liability thoughts people prefer not to think until insurance forces them to. There is furniture, shade, storage for pool things, towels multiplying like a soft blue tax across the laundry cycle. There is also something less obvious. The psychological pressure to use the pool enough to justify the pool. That pressure matters. Because once something large and expensive enters your life, underuse stops feeling neutral. It starts feeling like waste. So people build more behavior around the object, not always because they want to, but because the cost is sitting there visibly. They host when they are tired. They buy more accessories. They keep adjusting the space. They pour more money after the first money because it feels emotionally easier than admitting the first decision was larger than expected. The home gym works in a slightly crueler way because it often attaches itself to self-improvement. A person buys a treadmill, a bench, a rack, maybe a bike, maybe a full mirrored room, and the entire setup arrives wearing moral authority, health, discipline, longevity, future self-respect. That makes the purchase hard to challenge because who wants to sound anti-health? But a home gym can multiply in ways people do not price, honestly. Equipment is only the beginning. Flooring, mats, fans, storage, repairs, subscriptions, upgraded devices, recovery tools, supplements, organization systems, more gear because now the room exists and should probably be complete. Sometimes the actual hidden expense is the room itself. A guest room becomes a gym. A garage loses parking capacity. A larger house seemed worth it because there would be room for wellness. Now square footage is being financed partly to preserve an exercise identity that may or may not survive the next winter. None of this means home gyms are foolish. For some people, they are excellent investments. The question is whether the setup is answering a stable behavioral pattern or trying to manufacture one through acquisition. That question is devastatingly important. If the purchase is supporting a habit that already exists, the multiplier may be manageable and even worthwhile. If the purchase is trying to solve inconsistency with equipment, the multiplier can become a shrine to intentions you financed too early. Boats may be the purest expression of the entire phenomenon because the multiplier effect around them is almost theatrical. The original dream is easy to understand. Water, freedom, weekends. A life that looks somehow broader than ordinary schedules. But boats recruit an entire economy around themselves: fuel, storage, maintenance, safety gear, cleaning, covers, repairs, slip fees, launch fees, towing capacity, weather-related decisions, off-season decisions. And then, because the object is tied to leisure and status, it often recruits spending upstream and downstream. Coolers, clothing, tech, upgraded phones for photos, restaurants near the marina, weekends shaped around using the thing so it feels worth it. Maybe even moving closer to the water or joining social circles where the boat is no longer an occasional thrill, but a marker of belonging. This is what people mean when they say, "A purchase changes your life." They usually say it with excitement. They should sometimes say it with caution. Because when an object changes your life, that means it is also changing your budget, your calendar, your standards, and your sense of what normal spending now looks like. That is the multiplier effect in its most honest form. A thing enters, a system follows. At this point, it helps to reframe the whole issue in a harder but cleaner way. A major lifestyle purchase is not just an item, it is a small institution. It has operating costs. It has maintenance schedules. It has cultural expectations. It often has an identity attached to it. It can reshape the space around it, the behavior around it, and the spending around it. And once you see it as an institution rather than an object, your questions improve. Not, do I want this? But do I want to run this? Do I want to run a pool? Do I want to run a boat? Do I want to run a home gym? Do I want to run a second property? Do I want to run a large patio setup that will now need cushions, covers, cleaning, repairs, hosting energy, and continued visual maintenance so it keeps feeling like the version I bought in my head? That question is sharper because it includes time, attention, and stewardship, not just money. And stewardship is often the hidden killer. People do not only underestimate what things cost, they underestimate what things ask. A bigger purchase can quietly eat Saturdays. It can eat mental energy. It can create recurring low-grade stress because it is one more category in your life, capable of going wrong, wearing down, demanding decisions, requiring upkeep, or making you feel guilty when ignored. Not the person who buys the pool may later find that they do not own a luxury so much as a new maintenance calendar. The person who buys the home gym may find they did not just acquire convenience, they acquired another room with expectations. The person who buys the boat may discover that fun, once owned, becomes management. That is an uncomfortable truth, because modern consumer culture is extremely good at selling the upside of a lifestyle, and strangely shy about describing the administrative burden of sustaining it. And because the burden arrives in fragments, people adapt before they fully notice the scale of what happened. One bill here, one upgrade there, one accessory, one repair, one improvement that now seems sensible because the original purchase already exists. The sunk cost begins doing emotional work. Since we have the pool, we should probably make the area nicer. Since we bought the boat, we should probably get the better trailer. Since we built the home gym, we might as well finish the basement properly. Since we bought the cabin, we should probably furnish it well enough that it feels worth the trips. This is how lifestyle ecosystems deepen. They defend themselves. And the more money already inside them, the easier it feels to keep feeding them, rather than step back and admit the first decision opened a much larger door than expected. There is also a social dimension that makes the multiplier stronger. Big purchases change what others expect from you and what you begin to expect from yourself. If you own the boat, you become the person with the boat. If you have the pool, the house becomes the gathering place. If you build the home gym, some part of your self-story now insists you are the kind of person who should use it seriously. Social roles and self-roles both create pressure to continue spending in alignment with the purchase. The object is no longer passive. It starts writing scripts, and that is why people can feel strangely trapped by luxuries they once wanted intensely. They are not only paying for the thing, they are paying for the role that came with it. This is where opportunity cost becomes especially brutal. The money tied up in the first purchase is only part of the story. The real damage can come from everything else that money never got to do. Emergency savings that stayed smaller, investments that compounded more slowly, debt that lasted longer than it needed to, mobility reduced. Financial pressure slightly elevated year after year because a large purchase quietly kept expanding its perimeter. Imagine two households with similar incomes. One adds a pool and the ecosystem around it. The other decides against it and instead preserves the capital, keeps outdoor living simpler, maybe rents enjoyable experiences seasonally, maybe travels instead, maybe just lets the money remain available for less visible but more powerful forms of stability. 10 years later, the difference may not only be in net worth. It may be in stress, flexibility, time, and the feeling of how heavy life is to maintain. That is what the multiplier effect obscures. It makes the purchase feel singular when it is actually cumulative. So how do you protect yourself from it without becoming joyless or suspicious of every major expense? You ask better pre-purchase questions. What will this require around it? What will this raise the standard of? What recurring bills begin the moment this arrives? What supporting purchases will suddenly start feeling reasonable because the main purchase already exists? How often will I realistically use it after the first burst of excitement fades? What part of this desire is about the object, and what part is about the identity attached to it? If I could access this lifestyle temporarily without owning its full ecosystem, would that satisfy most of the desire? That last question is especially powerful because sometimes what people want is not ownership at all. They want access to a feeling a few times a year, rent the boat, join the community pool, use a regular gym, borrow equipment. Try the lifestyle before installing the institution, because there is a major difference between enjoying a category and underwriting it, and many people do not realize which side they are signing up for until much later. The smartest adults around money are often not the ones who never buy anything ambitious. They are the ones who understand that the most important cost is often not on the sticker, it is in the spread. What spreads outward from this purchase? What does it drag behind it? What kind of life does it begin to expect from me once it is here? Those questions do not kill joy, they protect it, because joy financed carelessly becomes pressure. Joy purchased without regard for maintenance becomes resentment. Joy that teaches the rest of your life to become more expensive can stop feeling like joy altogether. Go back to the man with the boat. The original moment was real, the thrill was real, the widening of life was real. But so was everything that followed: the fees, the fuel, the upgrades, the role, the maintenance. The feeling that a single decision had somehow recruited an entire part-time job disguised as recreation. That is the lesson. One big purchase is rarely one big purchase. It is often a multiplier, a lifestyle seed with expensive roots. And once you understand that, you stop judging purchases only by whether they seem beautiful, useful, exciting, or even justified in isolation. You start judging them by the ecosystem they create. That is how financial adults think. Not just, can I buy this? But, what will this teach the rest of my life to cost? That question alone can save years of hidden expenses, crowded weekends, and surprisingly heavy luxuries, because the real price of a big purchase is very often not the thing. It is the life that quietly gathers around it afterward.